All right, today we're going to dig into the numbers behind one of the most, well, talked about figures on the planet, Elon Musk. And we're going to forget the headlines, forget all the speculation. We're going straight to the source, using the hard data from the Forbes file to really understand what makes his empire tick.
So how do you even begin to measure the world's richest person? Sounds like a simple question, right? But the answer is anything but. When you're talking about this kind of wealth, what are you actually counting? It's not some giant vault filled with cash. Nope. It's a super complex web of assets, company shares, and valuations that are literally changing by the minute. So what does that number actually look like?
$482.2 billion. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's a recent real-time net worth figure from Forbes. It's a number so huge, it's honestly hard to wrap your head around. But what's even more important than the number itself is the story behind it. Where does all that value actually come from?
Okay, so to make any sense of a number that massive, we've got to break it down. Let's start with the view from the very top and see how this whole fortune is put together.
You know, the first thing you notice is how incredibly concentrated his wealth is. The vast majority is tied up in just two companies. The biggest piece of the pie comes from his stake in Tesla, the electric car company. The second biggest slice, that's his private rocket company, SpaceX. What this really means is his net worth is directly, and I mean dramatically, tied to how well those two giants are doing.
And that concentration of assets is what plants him firmly at number one on the Forbes real-time billionaires list. This isn't just some fleeting thing. It solidifies his status as, right now, the wealthiest person on the planet. So let's zoom in on those two pillars holding up the entire empire, Tesla and SpaceX. I mean, these are the engines driving that incredible valuation.
So here's the breakdown, and it's pretty interesting. You've got Tesla, which is publicly traded, where he owns about 12%. But then you look at SpaceX, a private company valued at a massive $400 billion, and his ownership stake is way higher, around 42%. This really shows two completely different ways of building wealth. One through the public stock market, and the other by keeping huge control over a private powerhouse.
But come on, his ambitions don't just stop with cars and rockets. Not even close. His universe of companies is always growing, always pushing into new and, let's be honest, often controversial areas of technology.
Yeah, beyond Tesla and SpaceX, you've got his AI venture, xAI, which is all tied up with X, the platform we all still call Twitter. Then you have the Boring Company, his tunneling startup, and of course, Neuralink, which is working on brain-computer interfaces. And just to give you a sense of scale here, the Boring Company and Neuralink alone have raised about $2 billion from investors. These are not small side hustles.
Okay, so we've looked at the companies, but what about the man himself? Forbes gives us a few quick and frankly pretty surprising stats that give us a whole different kind of insight.
11. According to his Forbes profile, that's the number of children he has. It's a personal data point that definitely surprises a lot of people and adds this whole other layer to his public persona, especially since he's tied it to his concerns about population collapse.
Now this is really interesting. Forbes gives Musk a self-made score of 8 out of 10. But what does that actually mean? Well, it doesn't mean he started with absolutely nothing. A score of 8, by Forbes' own definition, means someone came from a middle-class or upper-middle-class background. So while he had a head start, the vast fortune he's built is definitely considered his own creation.
And from that background, his rise has been just incredible to watch. I mean, in 2018, Forbes ranked him the 25th most powerful person in the world. Just 1 year later, he was number 1 on their list of innovative leaders. You fast forward to today, and he's at the very top of the billionaires list. That is a truly meteoric rise in power and influence in less than a decade.
So we've covered the what and the how much, but the final piece of the puzzle is the how. What's the underlying philosophy that drives someone to build not just one, but multiple world-changing companies? This quote right here might be the most important data point of all. It's a philosophy called first principles thinking. So instead of reasoning by analogy, doing something just because that's how it's always been done, he starts with the most fundamental, basic truths of a problem, and then builds his solution up from there. It's how you get reusable rockets and electric cars for the masses. So, from electric cars to reusable rockets to brain interfaces, this first principles approach, that's the common thread. It's the engine behind the entire empire. Which, of course, leaves us with a final, fascinating question to chew on. What seemingly impossible problem will be the next to be solved by reasoning up from the ground floor?